Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the live stream of the 2025 Albuquerque Mayoral Roundtable, hosted by the Albuquerque Journal in partnership with KOAT-TV and KKOB News Radio. Thank you to the 6 mayoral candidates who will be appearing on this year's ballot for joining us. I'm Ryan Boytel, the opinion editor of the Journal, and joining me are panelists Dan Boyd, the Journal Capitol Bureau Chief, Darlene Melendez from KOAT, and Zoltan Csanyi Salcedo, the news director at KKOB, who will be asking the questions today. Thanks to the League of Women Voters, who will be keeping time for us. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. To start, we're going to give each candidate 60 seconds for an introduction and opening remarks. We'll go in alphabetical order, beginning with Mayling Armijo.
Thank you for having me. I'm Mayling Armijo, I'm your candidate for mayor. And most of you probably know a lot about me by now, so I'll stick to the highlights. I was your Director of Economic Development for 12 years, where I delivered $1.4 billion in private investment and helped create over 5,000 jobs. So I have a results-driven record, and you can see that. I was formerly the Deputy County Manager for Sandoval County, so I know how to run a local government. And currently, I work as the Executive Director for Elevated Lending, where I help small businesses access capital. So I'm very entrenched in the economic development community. Still, to this day, I work with small businesses, and still, to this day, I have seen them suffer under this current administration, which has driven me to run. So I thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Mayor Keller?
Well, these are tough times, and we have layers of challenges. We've got national problems, we have fentanyl eating away American cities, and we have our own challenges that we're still dealing with decades old. And we also have a president who is trying to divide us. That's why we need strong, experienced leadership now more than ever. Now, you asked me to face those challenges head on, to do the real work to solve real problems. And deep change takes time. It's not just the flip of a switch. It's not just changing out a person. It takes hard work every single day for years. Now, when I came into the city, we had a police department that was falling apart. I've rebuilt it. It's now capable of holding itself accountable and is finally bringing crime down. When I came in, we had no system to help the unhoused. Now, every night, we take care of 1,000 people every single night. So I am the only candidate who stands here before you, demonstrating real results, real progress, and has a real plan and the guts to see it through.
Thank you. Councilor Sanchez?
Thank you. My name is Louie Sanchez, and I am a 26-year vet of the Albuquerque Police Department. I retired from APD, rising to the ranks of commander, and I'm also a city councilor. Right now, I have actually been involved in many years of being a business owner. So being a business owner, being a city councilor, and being a police officer has geared me to work in this capacity and be a new leader for the city of Albuquerque. Some of my highlights is when I became a police officer, I became a police officer to serve the community. When I served the community, one of the things that I learned is that you have to always give back to the community. As a business owner, I ended up giving back as well through numerous scholarship opportunities where I've given scholarships back to many Hispanic seniors so that they can attend college. So I will bring a leadership with a spirit of excellence, a leadership with a new culture, and a leadership that will move Albuquerque forward.
Thank you. Mr. Uballez?
Good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to be here. Tonight, or this afternoon, what you're going to hear is an incumbent defend a status quo that is very clearly broken, and then a bunch of challengers complain about it. What I know is that the people of Albuquerque are ready for a leader who delivers results. As spending the past 15 years here in public service and public safety, I've charged and taken down child predators and cartel bosses. As U.S. Attorney, I took down 30 years of corruption in Albuquerque's police departments. And we also helped build the Violence Intervention Program as well as the first federal reentry court because we can deliver results with care and with consequences. Now, I know that real work takes time, but it shouldn't take forever. The people of Albuquerque are ready for someone who can deliver for them in a way that they can feel, with both care and consequences, and Albuquerque that works for all of us.
Thank you. Mr. Varela?
Thank you for having us today. It's a wonderful thing to come and be before, ladies and gentlemen. I want to tell you that I've been working at this for 2 years. I am a stellar candidate, and I have earned my way, and I have learned so much from the citizens here in Albuquerque. I'm not going to go into my biography because you've all heard it before. I am a seasoned veteran of the fire service, an administrator. I've held every rank in the fire service, including paramedic, for 17 years. I know my city. What I want you to listen to today is my plans. I have real plans to solve the problems of our city. Not rhetoric, not promises, but real plans. And I'm asking you today, listen carefully to my plans because they've been developed over the last 2 years and they've been checked and quality checked. And we have plans to fix our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Good afternoon. I'm Darren White. Albuquerque is at a tipping point. Record-breaking crime. Over 750 murders in the last 8 years. The homeless problem is so bad that city employees are dispatched every day to go out and clean up human waste. When the laws aren't enforced, the lawless take over. Businesses are struggling to survive. Many of them have closed their doors, especially pharmacies. If you have to have an emergency prescription filled in the middle of the night, you have to drive to Rio Rancho to get it filled because pharmacies, because of crime and homelessness, are no longer open 24 hours a day in Albuquerque. We can't keep electing the same person and expecting a different result. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, let's get into what we believe will be an informative conversation as Election Day approaches. Our first question is from Dan Boyd, and it will be answered first by Mayor Keller.
Good afternoon to all the candidates, and thank you for being here. A recent Journal poll found more than half of likely Albuquerque voters viewed crime as the biggest issue facing city residents, with homelessness close behind. What is your plan for reducing crime rates that are roughly 3 times higher than the national average?
So my plan is to use technology and civilians to build on what's working to bring crime down. So when I came into the department, we actually had a massive exodus of officers, and we had low morale. Now fast forward to today, we've installed license plate readers, speed cameras, gunshot detection in 20% of the city. And where this is in place, what we see is that if you actually shoot and kill someone in the city, we will find you and arrest you. That was never true in this city's history until a couple of years ago until we did this. Because when we use technology, we're doing the same as hiring more officers because we're freeing up officers to fight violent crime. That's what speed cameras do. And I also use civilians. I created the Community Safety Department, which has taken 150,000 calls that APD did not have to take, giving a social work response so that APD is not responding to down and outs and to the homeless and behavioral health and mental health calls. We now have that through the 911 system in the Community Safety Department. Again, this frees up officers to fight crime. That's why we see crime categories finally coming down. Now, they're coming down from all-time highs. I acknowledge that. But here again, we see what's working. That's the difference. Because now with crime categories going down, we have to build on what's working. And now is no time to turn back. If we get this crime fighting platform over the entire city, I know that crime is going to continue to keep going down.
Thank you. Councilor Sanchez?
Thank you. I just heard the mayor say that when he came in, he had a massive exodus. That's for sure. All the officers left because they didn't trust the administration that was coming in. When you're dealing with tech and you're dealing with ACS, PSAs, and ACS, PSAs, and tech, what you're doing was you're funding those programs, but what you should be funding is you should be funding the Albuquerque Police Department. Albuquerque Police Department needs 1,600 police officers to be successful. We need crime fighters in the streets. ACS can't make an arrest. Tech can't make an arrest right then and there. And PSAs can't make an arrest. We need to invest in officers. My plan is to make sure that we have the best police chief ready to go so that Albuquerque can have a new culture in their department and bring back Albuquerque so that Albuquerque will want to become police officers. We have our own men and women here in Albuquerque, and we'd like to invite them to be officers, but they won't do it if they have a police department that they don't feel comfortable with. Officers aren't dumb. When they vet a department, they do their homework. And right now, when they do their homework, they go to a different department. Albuquerque needs a mayor that's going to bring the culture back so that Albuquerque Police Department can grow.
Thank you. Mr. Uballez?
Safety is foundational. It's the thing that makes us build our dreams and be able to walk out of our houses onto the streets, walk our children to school, play in our parks. And if we don't address safety and the perception of safety here, then we'll never get to enjoy our city. As a former chief federal law enforcement officer for all of New Mexico, I know that we can apply a smart approach to how we are rolling out policing and intervention and prevention across the city. This means a countywide 911 system staffed by first responders, so you get the response that you need quickly and the right response. This means fighting for fully funding ACS, so that when there is a social service need, you actually get social service response, and not APD there to help solid waste throw away homelessness people's belongings. This means proactive policing, so that we are working and investigating cases. This is what we specialize on the federal side. So we're actually building cases against those most prolific actors and those who are spreading misery in our communities. This means specialized units. I would like to see a specialized domestic violence unit that co-responds with civilians who can respond to the issues in a family in crisis and actually solve and prevent a future homicide. Now, I'd like to really, truly invest in intervention and prevention. This is the model ACS was supposed to be built on, not the model of taxiing people around our city and from corner to corner, but one where we're actually intervening in people's lives, helping them deal with the problems and struggles that are facing them, and preventing them from falling into crime that will further plague our city.
Thank you. Mr. Varela?
Thank you. Crime. That is the biggest issue, crime and homeless. I have a plan, and I'm going to start day one when I'm elected mayor. I'm going to install a curfew in our city. We need to have a curfew, 18-year-olds and under, an emergency curfew in our city. We have 12, 13, 14-year-olds killing people and murdering people in our city, and nothing is being done about it. Let me tell you, I will do something about it. I'm going to institute a curfew, and the parents will be involved. If we catch a child out there with guns and fentanyl and those things, the parents will be involved. Now, this is an emergency situation that we're going to have to do right away, and we're out there to try to stop what's going on, the killing. How about the road rage? How about the racing? All of this seems to be landing on the responsibility of the young people. We're going to do that. We're going to start something in the schools. It's going to be called Police ROTC, just like Army ROTC, Navy, and Air Force. And we're going to get to the high schools with juniors and seniors, and primarily seniors, and we're going to graduate them from a program where they are certified. We will hire them in the police safety aid and put them into work as Albuquerque police. We will also have a day pool work of retired police officers. They will work out on the streets, and they'll be doing one and only one thing, and that's patrolling and being visible. The police that I talk to tell me visibility is everything, so I will bring visibility by hiring day work police officers who have retired. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Every year around this time, the FBI releases a report, and it's called Crime in America. And right now, Albuquerque's number 6 in violent crime and number 6 in property crimes. I will hire a chief of police who's a strong and inspirational leader, one that the officers as well as the public can be proud of. We need to return to what's called proactive policing, and that's where officers are out conducting traffic stops every single day. The mayor likes to talk about his new direction of hiring and deploying technology and civilians. They are important to any law enforcement organization, but they can't make up for law enforcement officers who are wearing badges, who are out on the streets protecting our community. We need to get back to proactive policing where officers are doing the traffic stops. When an officer does a traffic stop, he may find somebody that has a warrant for their arrest. It could be a warrant for a violent crime. He may see something that he recognizes as up to no good. A speed camera cannot do that. It's a vital role in any law enforcement strategy doing traffic stops, and we've given it up. I want to go back and bring on a juvenile crime unit. I think it's important. The criminals are becoming they're younger, and they're more violent, and they're more vicious. I'd love to have a division within the department that specializes in juvenile crime so they can work with the DA.
Thank you. Our time is up. We'll go on to Ms. Armijo.
Thank you so much. So absolutely need a new police chief in office, and we need to enact community policing initiatives and neighborhood liaisons and go back to beat patrols. And the mayor isn't wrong. Technology has its place, but we need cops to stop the crime, to make the arrest. And so we have to boost recruitment. And then with that, we need to have sign-on bonuses, longevity pay. One of my biggest ideas is housing for our academy cadets. As they attend the academy, there's some housing for them. So this will help us focus just on recruiting, especially our veteran communities. We need to focus on veterans so that when we do recruit from out of state, we have a place for them to stay and then to train. This will help bring in our numbers and the cops that we need to reduce crime. It doesn't matter how many cops we have or how much technology we have. We need them both, but we have to work with them together.
Thank you. That takes us to our second question, which will be asked by Darlene Melendez, and this one will be answered first by Counselor Louie Sanchez.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. In Albuquerque, drug use, homelessness, and property crime, these things often intersect. So if elected, how would you balance the punishment aspect with also prevention and treatment? And also, how would you ensure that systems like law enforcement and social services communicate to deliver results?
Right now, anybody can walk out on the streets of Albuquerque and see what's going on. I have a business right on Central Avenue, and I watch, just like other citizens of Albuquerque watch, hundreds of drug deals go on each day. We don't see police officers out there like we need to be seeing police officers. So I don't see any technology near my business. I don't see ACS. I haven't seen an ACS car for months and months in front of my business. So I don't know where all this money is being spent and where it's going, because we're not seeing it as citizens of Albuquerque. One of the biggest things that needs to be done is we need to make sure that we're addressing the crime that's in the books and the crime that's already and address crime at the lowest levels. Enforcing the laws that are in the books and enforcing laws at the lower levels will actually get the needle moving. We need to make sure that we send a strong message to the drug cartels who are out there victimizing our families, victimizing the friends, and victimizing the people that are on the streets. Without removing the drug issue, we're never going to meet the victims at any point. So it's very, very important that we actually work really hard to make sure that we vet the systems that are in place right now, because millions are being spent, and look at the streets right now. Currently, we're not doing enough. We need to bring a real case management system back into play so that we can help the public and help.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to Mr. Uballez.
Thank you, Darlene. It's a great question. I like the framing because it talks about using both care and consequences. We're using neither currently. And that is why we have found that homelessness has doubled in the past 3 years. That's why we have found that 700 people are stuck in the West Side shelter with nowhere to go. We need to both provide the options for people to get off of the streets. That means street outreach and street medic models, so we reach people where they are and give them the services they needed. It means transitional housing, so the folks in our shelter system have a way of getting out of our shelter system and into homes with wraparound services. It means implementing systems within our criminal justice system, so identify those people with serious mental illnesses and getting them the treatment that they need while they are in that system. The problem with approaching everything with a deterrence mindset, right, as Louie is suggesting, doing all of the lowest level enforcement, is that when you're overcome by addiction or your mind is overwhelmed by the mental illness, the deterrence model of punishments simply doesn't work. And by the way, it's also ineffective. We know what happens when people get arrested for misdemeanors. They show back up on our streets tomorrow. And so not only is this costly because it's police time, it's MDC time, but it's ineffective. It makes people worse off, right, because they spent a night in jail. And it doesn't solve the problem because these folks are right back here. And so what we need to do is provide those wraparound services, actually provide the care. And that way we can identify those folks who we need to access with consequences, who are pushing crime in our community, and deliver those in a targeted fashion.
Thank you. Mr. Varela?
I could not disagree with Alex more. I want the city to get out of the homeless business. We're spending $200 million a year for homeless, okay? I walk the streets, I talk with homeless at least once a week. I know who they are, and I know what they think, and I know what we need to do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hire private security people to walk the streets with the homeless, like I do, and get to the root of the problem, then, because homeless is just a catch-all name. There's layer after layer after layer of homeless. It's out of control. They're putting people out of business. the economic forecast for the Northeast Heights is terrible. I'm going to have private security try to identify who these people are, and I don't mean shaking them up. I talk in a humanitarian way, find out who they are, and the ones that want help, I want to give them help. But the ones who insist on being addicted to fentanyl, they're going to have to leave our town. And we're going to identify who they are, and we're going to cite them for their infractions. Broken windows, defecation, it goes on and on. Those citations will go to the judge will sign them, and they won't show up, and we're going to have a situation where they have warrants, and I'm going to give them the opportunity, have a warrant for your arrest, you want to go to jail, or would you like to go back to your home state? Because 50% of them are not from Albuquerque. I've already asked this question of homeless, and 9 out of 10 tell me, give me the ticket, I'll go home today. So it's going to be easier than you think.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Turnstile justice has failed our city miserably, not just from the standpoint of that our city streets aren't safe, but also to the criminals also. Because what you have is you have a system that is just pumping people through the system, one right after another. They're not capturing them. Like Eddie said, if you ignore the small crimes, it breeds bigger, more violent crimes, which is what we're also seeing in Albuquerque. So we need to get to these folks when they're committing misdemeanor crimes and get them the help that they need. Work with the state so that our court system has adequate treatment facilities. We know that a jail cell's not going to shake somebody's addiction to drugs, but the problem is by the time they get there, it's too late. They've already become career criminals. We've all seen it. They get arrested for a bad crime, and their rap sheet is a mile long. That's what justice is in New Mexico. That's what it is in Albuquerque, and that's what has to change. We need to work with our district attorney and with our courts to ensure that these people who are committing the lower level crimes get the services that they need, and most importantly, be held accountable for those small crimes, because just kicking them out of the system, it isn't working. We've seen that. And now, what are we? The 6th most violent city in the country. It's not working, it's failing, and it has to change.
Thank you. Ms. Armijo?
I think it's hard to balance the punishment part because we don't control the courts and we don't control the state laws as a mayor. So we have to use what we can in the prevention and the treatment parts of this. And prevention is the best that we can do is provide the services and the wraparound services that we already are existing. What I would like to do is increase the number of mental health crisis teams, mental health crisis providers in the city. So partnering with UNM and CNM in creating that workforce and putting a focus on the need for those types of professionals that can help us with those mental health crisis teams so that they can go out on the street and work with them and see who needs help. But there is an accountability. There are things that do happen. Crime does happen as a result of homelessness, and it has to be addressed. And there has to be accountability and consequences, and we have to be able to enforce them. And the revolving door does not help. So we need to work together to figure out a solution to that part of finding the balance. And I think the other part of the question was, how do you communicate to deliver results? And that's an important part to this, because I think for all of us, when we look at results, we just drive down First Street or drive down Central, but we need to have measured outcomes. So is there an increase in mental health professionals? Does that decrease homelessness and crime? Let's look at that as a measured outcome.
Thank you. Mayor Keller?
So there's lots of ideas out here, and they're good ideas. They're recycling ideas that we already do. And I have to just note at least like 12. We already do violence intervention. We already increased ACS's budget. By the way, APD does not throw belongings away. We already have co-response. We already have street outreach. We already have public service aides recruiting in our high schools. We already have proactive policing. We already have bonuses and longevity pay. We already have 100 new beds for treatment, and we just opened 100 more. And we already move 1,000 people from the gateway into services. And we already work with the DA, and we already have a co-response model. This is the point. It takes an all-the-above approach. All of these things are good ideas, which is why I already do them. The issue is scaling them. We have to continue to invest in what is working. These things are working. And so my administration is focused on scaling what's working, which is an all-the-above approach. That's why we have to continue to build out the gateway to get 1,000 more people into treatment. That's why we have to continue to do things like recruit more officers at the same time as use civilians in technology. That's why we have to use speed cameras and we have to do traffic stops. That's part and parcel what this whole election is about. It's about real problem solving versus having an idea that we're already doing. That's what you get with my campaign. We know what's working, we just have to keep going.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on. Our next question is from Mr. Csanyi Salcedo, and Alex Uballez will be the first to answer.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. With regards to the city's quality of life, and I think we touch on that a little bit with the crime conversation, what do you feel are the opportunities that you can provide in your administration to be able to develop opportunities for economic development and at the same time bring more jobs to the city?
Absolutely. I'll just name the fact that public safety and dealing with homelessness are foundational to that feeling of our city. And so first we have to address those, and I know we've addressed those in other questions. But there's additional things that we can be doing to make our city feel vibrant and support our small businesses, our big businesses, and all of its residents. We need to start by looking at housing. We've been stagnant in the amount of housing that we've built due to, in large parts, the failure of our planning and zoning department to get permits out and approved, to get inspectors out so things get built, and so we can get people into houses that they can afford and that are accessible. And when we do this, I think we also look at our zoning codes and take advantage of the fact that now we can build density in our transit corridors and in our downtown. This, combined with targeted incentives for nonprofits and mission-driven developers, will help us build up density in our downtown area so that people will actually live and walk and work there. That's supplemented by what we need to do on the small business side. We need to have a customer service mentality when it comes to our small businesses. When they come to City Hall saying, I have a dream, we have to come to them and say, look, here is how you navigate it. Here is how we will walk you through it. And we have to get you to yes in quicker than a year or 9 months so you can stand up your businesses. And by the way, I think we should be, when we are using our incentives, we should not be giving them to the big developers and instead focusing on relieving the stress in our small businesses so that they can start out their dreams and build out the economy that supports this whole city.
Thank you. Mr. Varela?
Yes. One of the things that's really got me concerned is Mayor Keller is attempting to reduce the paramedic response to calls to your house. We have 2 paramedics on our rescue squad now. He's attempting to reduce it to 1. I will fight that all the way. We need 2 paramedics on every unit. And unfortunately, we have not been able to get the word out because of this campaign, but that is a quality of life issue, and it's your quality of life. When a response gets to your house and there's only 1 paramedic, you will pay the price. We got to stop this. All right? One of the things that I think our city needs is an arena. You know, we have the arena over there to Fairgrounds, but it's beginning to show its age. Quality of life issue. We need an arena here so that we can host massive events, big events. Rio Rancho has one. And by the way, Rio Rancho has everything. Massive growth. What do we have? 0 growth. And I want to do something in the legal department. It's going to be called Adoption Assistance Program. Adoption is a legal situation, and I want to have adoption assistance in the legal department to help save some babies from abortion. And lastly, on the jobs thing, of course I'm for jobs. I'm for opening more trade schools to include the city opening trade school for our young people so that they can learn a trade. Because in the future, we've got AI, we have quantum, all these things are going to put our kids out of work. So we got to start training them to do the hands-on trades in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Very important question. 2/3 of all jobs that are created in the city are created by small businesses. And it's important that we recenter our focus on those small businesses, many of them who are struggling to survive. We already talked about some of the crime and the vandalism. One of the things that we don't talk about that's a direct result because of our crime problem is small businesses are suffering with insurance rates. I know of a business that 6 years ago was $38,000 a year for their insurance. It's now $132,000 a year. That's $11,000 a month. Small businesses cannot absorb that. We need to change our planning department. It's taking entirely too long for plans to make it through and the permitting process to get through. It is destroying our folks who want to come here and invest in our community, but also the people who are here every single day. And then also, we have to have a qualified workforce. We all know that our education system is suffering drastically. And Eddie is right. The city doesn't have a lot of responsibility as it relates to our education system. But one of the things that we can do is that we can redouble our efforts as it relates to vocational training, so that some of these young people who are coming out of high school who don't want to go on to college, they can maybe get some training that will help them with their future and Albuquerque's future as well.
Thank you. Ms. Armijo?
So incentives for large and small are important. Small businesses are part of the innovation of our country. But if we don't look at attracting big businesses and providing those same incentives, states like Texas and Colorado and Arizona will continue to take our young. We will lose, they will migrate out of the city. So we have to focus on both. With small businesses, it requires targeted tax incentives. Small businesses look at the tax rate. If you can lower taxes and lower fees for small businesses, you will help them thrive. But you have to have a balance with large businesses as well. Now, in my first 90 days in office, I will clear the permitting backlog. We will figure it out, and we will clear all the permits. We will figure out why inspections are taking long. Instead of however long they're taking, we're going to make sure they get done. Like, these are things that need to be addressed in the first few months. We can't just say we're going to do it. We have to get it done, because development has become stagnant. Developers do not want to develop in Albuquerque because they don't know when they're going to get a permit. So these are just little things that we need to do. We just have to go back to basics, take care of our businesses, work at the speed of business, and we will have economic growth.
Thank you. Mayor Keller?
So I think this is a good example of a lot of the shared intent and same desire that we all have. The real question here is how you actually do this. How do we accomplish all of those things? And I'll start with permitting. You know, we had to invest in a whole IT system. We had to bring in a bunch of new folks and do some culture change work. And now our permitting is down by 50%. And that includes code permits, and that includes housing building permits. They're all down by 50%. And we know what to do next. We've got to do pre-approvals for things like roof and HVAC, and we've got to do third-party consented reviews for development plans. So that's how we actually do this for planning. The other thing is around small businesses. We've got to focus our incentives and tie them to hiring local folks. That's why my program uses all our incentives if you hire 10 more people. And that's how we also connect to workforce development. Our city, we've hired an individual to work with APS at a senior level liaison, Kata Sandoval. She is working on actually creating 1,000 internships for our students to work at the city, and also making sure that they're tied into career tech so they can work in jobs of the future. The question is, what are the jobs of the future? The answer is quantum computing and fusion. These are esoteric things, but they're our #1 bet to have shared prosperity for the next generation. That's why we're focusing our incentives on those. The last thing is placemaking. We have to continue to do things like we've done at 7th and Central, like we're doing at the rail yards, and like we're doing on the rail trails, so that people can live, work, and play in the same place. We have some examples of those, and under my administration, we'll have dozens more.
Thank you. Councilor Sanchez?
Thank you. Everything sounds good, but crime and homelessness is still our biggest issue. Until we deal with crime and homelessness and clean up our cities, businesses will not come, small businesses will not open. I know what it feels first, and I know how it feels to have a small business and deal with these issues. Quality of life is extremely important to a small business owner. One of the things that I ran into as a small business, and I know others have because they've called me, is getting a small business license. Right now, currently, it took me 3 hours to get a small business license. And guess what? I had the mayor's director sitting right with me. So if that kind of thing is going on, we need to end that now. With me, I will come in, make sure that the whole permitting department is revamped, make sure that we have predictable timelines, make sure that we preserve small businesses so that we don't lose any small businesses and they don't close the door. We also need to incentivize those small businesses to make sure that those businesses are able to open their doors immediately without a lot of turmoil and a lot of time. Can you imagine having a small business that's ready to open up, and instead of using their capital, they use their capital combined with capital lent to them by the city of Albuquerque so they can have an immediate startup and immediately get customers into their doors? Those are the kinds of things that we need in Albuquerque. We also need large businesses to come into Albuquerque and have high-paying jobs. So I will be working on large business as well. I will hire the best economic development director in the United States to do that.
Our next question will come from Dan Boyd, and Eddie Varela will be the first to answer.
This question deals with the current political landscape, both in Albuquerque and nationally. How would President Donald Trump impact your approach to the job of Albuquerque mayor? Would you seek to resist or collaborate with the Trump administration? And please be as specific as you can.
Sure. I'm a Republican. I don't know Donald Trump, never met the guy. I watch world news, I watch national news, and I see what he's doing. I agree with a lot, I disagree with a lot. One of the things I disagreed with the most was selling public land. I wrote letters to Washington. We don't sell public land. But this is a nonpartisan election, okay? And we have to remember that. I am a Republican, so is Mr. White, the rest are Democrats, and that's fine. But I am who I am. And I'm asking you to never mind Donald Trump and vote for the person for your mayor, because I don't know the guy. I mean, I just don't. So that question is kind of an interesting question, because will I follow his mandates? No. But if some of them are good, yes. You know, that's as simple as it is. You know, the man is the president of the United States. And when our mayor defies him by saying our immigrant-friendly city is going to be reenacted or repurposed, he's going to cost us $80 million in revenue for doing that. Instead of saying quietly, you know what, I'm not going to say nothing. But when he did that, he ensured that our city is going to lose millions of dollars. I would never do something like that, because who's going to pay? Our city's going to pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. White?
They say that for every dollar we send back to Washington, we get over $1.50 back. We rely heavily on our federal government. We have as many as 20,000 jobs that are federal jobs here in our city. I don't have to tell you, Sandia National Labs, not the 12,000 people that work there, but also all of the local businesses that support them as well. The Air Force Base, could you imagine if through realignment for some reason we lost our Air Force Base? I don't care who the President of the United States is. You have to be able to work with them, because we rely on them. I would need to be able to work with our congressional delegation, regardless of what party they are, because we, as a city, rely on those federal dollars. They're critically important to our survival. So the answer is yes. I will, regardless of who the president is, I will reach out to them and work with them so that we can ensure that we're not losing things like the Sandia National Labs. We're not losing jobs at our Air Force Base, because if we did, our gross receipts would tank, and we would see that $1.5 million budget that the mayor has created get scaled back very, very quickly and very, very dramatically, and with a lot of pain.
Ms. Armijo?
I firmly believe in collaboration. Regardless of who's on the other side of the table, you have to reach across and try to figure out some type of compromise. So regardless of who the president is, we need to figure out how to work with the federal administration. Now, in cases where it hurts Albuquerqueans, because the focus is to make sure that this city is safe, it's a safe city for safe people, then that I will always defend. But I do not believe in politicizing an administration for political points. What I want and my focus is Albuquerque. And if that means collaborating and working and reaching across the aisle, then yes, I will absolutely do that.
Thank you. Mayor Keller?
You know, I think in spirit, I have to agree with Mayling. You know, I was the mayor during Trump 1, and I've seen this show before, and I think folks saw how I handled it. If any president from any party is going to try and divide our families, I will resist. If any president's going to try and take our land, I will push back. If any president is going to try and tell us what is best for us, I will say they are wrong and they need to respect us as our own city with our own history and our own governance. If a president tries to take over our streets, I will resist. If a president tries to round up immigrants, I will resist. Now, if a president wants to help support housing in our city, support transportation, I will absolutely work with them. If they want to support our labs and our base, I will absolutely work with them, just as I have in the past. I'm very tested on this issue. You've seen what I did during Trump 1. You've seen how I held us together during COVID. You know that I will fight for this city, and I will also stand up for our values, no matter who's president. That's why I believe you know what I will do going forward. And I also respect that some folks might disagree with it, and that's okay. I respect that. But I think leadership is also about making tough decisions. And there are fewer things that can be harder than to stand in the face of a president who is trying to literally tear apart our city. Yet I have made that decision time and time again, and I will continue to do that.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Sanchez?
We're in the middle of a nonpartisan race, although you'll hear different partisan politics come up. I was born and raised in Albuquerque. I enjoy watching these beautiful sunrises and beautiful sunsets. This is part of who we are. This is part of Albuquerque. I am running to be the mayor of Albuquerque, the leader of our beautiful city, the leader of our city that is so fantastic and has so much potential that we as citizens can actually come together and do the right things. You know, I work in a small business, and most of my small business is Spanish-speaking. So Albuquerque has an amazing culture that we need to be dealing with. This culture brings us together. This culture makes us better than we are. So I am running for the citizens of Albuquerque to make sure that Albuquerque is a safe place to live, a safe place to have your children born and raised here, and a safe place so that we can make sure that we grow Albuquerque together and make it the best city in the nation. That's why I'm running for mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Uballez.
Thank you. There's a reason that top law firms hire former United States attorneys to sit at council table when the federal government comes. It's because we are best equipped to fight the Department of Justice and the federal government when they are overreaching. Now, I've worked in task forces as the U.S. attorney, local and federal, and I've seen the power of that collaboration. But where I draw the line is when people terrorize our communities. We see 70% of the people who are swept up in ICE raids have zero criminal history. We see 170 United States citizens swept up in ICE raids regardless of where they're from. I think we're being asked at this moment to give up our values for money. And I will never give up my neighbor for money. We have the money here. It turns out we're actually a very rich state. We have the second largest trust fund in the nation with $64 billion we're sitting on. It is time for us to dip into that. And as mayor, I will go up to Santa Fe to advocate that we build the structures and systems to replace the money the federal government will be pulling out. Because what we need to do here is protect our people. That is also means, it's nice to say that we will resist. But the real question is how. Right? We should be banning masks. We should be requiring identification. We should be doing proactive know your rights education on our buses, our TVs, and our radios. We should be designating sensitive spaces in our hospitals, our schools, and our courts so the federal government can't do civil immigration enforcement. We should be designating response teams and legal defense for families torn apart by ICE. That is how we stand up for our community.
Thank you. Darlene Melendez will ask the next question, and Darren White will be the first to answer.
And now focusing solely on immigration, do you believe that Albuquerque should be a sanctuary city? And would you direct Albuquerque city employees, including law enforcement officers, to cooperate with federal immigration authorities and assist them with operations?
I don't believe that Albuquerque should be a sanctuary city. I've been very outspoken about this. We have enough criminals of our own. And let me explain to you what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are here in our country illegally and who commit crimes. Those are the people, that information should be turned over to immigration. That was also called the Obama Secure Communities Plan. It was no different. They said people that were here illegally that committed crimes should be turned over to ICE, and let them make a determination on whether they should be deported or not. We're not talking about families. We're not talking about victims. We're not talking about witnesses. I want to make it very clear. We are talking only about people who are in our community. And remember, these are people who are being charged with crimes like violent crimes, human trafficking, drug trafficking. They should be identified. That information should be given to immigration and allow them to put that detainer on them. Again, as I said, that's the Obama plan. And he called it secure communities. And I would propose the same thing. How we did it 15 years ago, we just had immigration inside the prisoner transport center, and every single person that went through was checked for their status.
Thank you. Ms. Armijo?
I've always been saying this. I'm immigrant friendly, but I'm not criminal friendly. And Darren's right. If you've committed a crime and you're an illegal, then we need to collaborate with our federal agencies. There's no reason to put them through the revolving door when we have federal partners that want to handle this problem for us. It's a pretty simple question for me.
Thank you. Mayor Keller.
Well, our policy is very straightforward, and it's a policy that I've now been behind for 8 years. And the policy is that we have to keep our community safe, and that means a couple of things. It means, number one, people should never be afraid to call our police department. That means in situations of domestic violence, unknown status of different neighbors or people in the home, people need to be able to call the police and trust the police without fear of deportation of any kind or fear of any kind. That's what our policy does. It says that the city will not work with ICE in any way, and that includes our police department. It also says that we won't track information. So we don't collect any data from anyone on their status. If you go to a library or a community center or engage with the police, we don't collect your data. This also means that we can tell the federal government, you can have all the data we have, because we don't collect it. That's why we're able to protect our funding at the same time as protect our families. Now, I also want to be clear. Our police department will arrest anyone who is doing something illegal. If you are committing a violent crime, we will arrest you for a violent crime. We're just not going to check your status. We're going to arrest you for a violent crime. We're going to put you in jail. That's why this policy has worked for Albuquerque for so long, and that's why I continue to support it. And that's also why we enhanced it by working with the county to do things like require IDs, to outline safe spaces, to educate businesses and people on their rights. That's exactly what we're doing right now in each and every day. It's not what we want to do in the future. It's what we have been doing under my leadership, and it's what we need to do now for the next 3.5 years to keep our families safe and our city safe.
Thank you. Councilor Sanchez?
I'm not for sanctuary city status. I've said it over and over and over. I'm a career law enforcement officer, and we've always cooperated with all agencies, including federal agencies. It's really important that we make sure that we take the criminals off the streets. Criminals hurt everybody, and they hurt businesses, they hurt the citizens, and they are hurting our growth in our city. So I will always cooperate with all law enforcement agencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Uballez.
Yeah, Darren's proposal accurately described the Obama administration's approach, and actually mine as U.S. Attorney, which was to focus federal criminal immigration enforcement on those driving misery here in our state. But that's not an accurate description of what Trump is doing, and that is the problem. Right. So we, as a prosecutor, I know that our cases are built on the strength and the bravery of our witnesses and our victims being willing to call for help when they need it and to show up for courts when we need them. What we know is that trust is earned, right? So you're not going to call if you don't believe somebody in your house is going to get deported because you're looking at the news and you're seeing 70% of people who are swept up in ICE raids have zero criminal history. And so that trust has been broken by the White House. That is the trust that's our responsibility as leaders of our city to rebuild. That is our biggest calling here if we want to make our streets safe, so that people feel safe calling and reaching out to us when they are in crisis.
Thank you. Mr. Varela?
Thank you. You know, in my journey through the city, that was the third most important issue. It was crime, homeless, and illegal immigration. I'm Hispanic. I speak Spanish. My family came from Mexico 300 years ago, and so it's a very sensitive thing for me to do before I take a position. And I have taken a position, I'll share with you. But before I did that, I went to the city clerk's office and I got a copy of our charter, City of Albuquerque Charter. And in that charter, there is a place where we can do a voter initiative. And that means the people can vote on it themselves. So I submitted a request for voter initiative so that Albuquerque can decide themselves about illegal aliens. Guess what? I haven't heard a thing, which doesn't surprise me from City Hall. 2 months ago, Ethan Watson, maybe the mayor can check and see what happened there, but I'm serious about that. Let the voters decide. Me personally, I'm against Sanctuary City, and I'll tell you why. We can't afford it. I mean, go to UNM Hospital, go to the ER, and walk around the hospital and see what I'm talking about, all right? I am not for picking up hardworking illegal aliens working on the job. I see it all the time. I will not allow that. But a criminal, I will do everything I can to get them out of our city, whether they're Hispanic, whatever, or Americans. I want them out of our city if they're criminals.
Thank you. That concludes that question. The next question will come from Zoltan, Csanyi, Salcedo, and Mayling Armijo will be the first to answer.
Thank you. So we did touch on this a little bit earlier. Juvenile crime has been a top of mind of many cities, many residents in Albuquerque and across the country. What initiatives would your administration take to proactively address the root causes of juvenile crime, specifically with regards to parental responsibility or any of the other ideas that have been addressed in this matter across the country?
I think prevention is our best bet when it comes to juvenile crime. From a city perspective, you know, the kids, I mean, idle hands at the end of the day. If they're not busy, they're going to get in trouble. And I was one of them. I get it. And so we need to look at after-school programs that focus on STEM or trades. We need to partner with APS to see what type of internships, jobs we can help create with our small business partners or even within the city. I don't, when it comes to parental responsibility, when I asked about that with current cops and cops that have been retired, it was hard to enforce. And so I like to control the things I can control. And if we can put money and time into prevention and focus on keeping them busy in different things and maybe bring back, I don't know, Darren, if you remember Dance, 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 you know, something along those lines, then we can keep our kids busy and keep them out of trouble.
Thank you. Mayor Keller?
I can't believe you only asked Darren if he's the one who remembers Dance Dance. I used to work at.
I think you lead it.
I know.
Didn't you sing at it, Darren? I think Darren sang it.
I just want to remind you, I have the question for you. And I was going to throw you a softball, but now I'm really reconsidering.
I mean, I love the Beach Water Park. It's where I used to work and love Dance Dance. Lots of stories there. But anyway, let's restart the clock here. I will just say this. Look, absolutely, we have to keep our teens busy. That's what we're doing, and we have to do more of it. So here again, I want to be specific. We had the Summer of Nonviolence. It was a series of activities that are peer teen-led. We had a couple of hundred in the first year, but then we had 1,000 because it started taking a foothold. And that is what we have to do year-round. That's why we have the Summer of Nonviolence to be year-round. That's why we've added 10,000 kids into our after-school and summer programs. But we also have to go into the schools. That's why I created this Student Violence-Based Intervention Program. It now is a deep intervention in 5 of our high schools. I want it in all our high schools. And it provides essentially, literally the term we heard earlier, care and consequences, where we're supporting the kids, but also the families and the drivers of crime. But we're also showing the consequences by having teachers who are formerly incarcerated to make sure that folks know they're on a wrong path. That program has shown an 80% drop in recidivism, and it's shown an 80% increase in grades. We need that in every school that we have. And we also do have to update our juvenile code. It's severely out of date. That's why I've been advocating for that at the legislature. And lastly, internships. This is why I'm literally working now with APS. We have about 1,000 internships, and we think we can have 1,000 more with their new Career Academy program that we're starting in 3 schools, and we want to run out to every school in APS in conjunction with the city over the next few years.
Thank you. Councilor Sanchez?
Albuquerque has so much auto theft right now, and the perpetrators of auto theft are kids, teens, between 11 and 15 years old. That's absolutely unacceptable. What we need to do is we need to get more information out there through the parents, to the media. We need to make sure that these kids are actually found out what they're doing, what they're carrying, because we got guns in the schools. and we need to make sure that guns never get back into the schools. One of the things that's going on right now is we need to update the juvenile code, because I know for a fact that there's many juveniles that are actually joining police departments, joining the military, and they have records that are just unbelievable. And we need to make sure that we vet those people out so that they don't hurt anybody else. I think it's really, really important that we actually work on public-private partnerships. I've been working for the last 4 years to try to open up the Ken Sanchez Indoor Sports Complex on the west side, but now it's election year, so it got cut. It got stopped by Parks and Rec and our mayor. So the shovel should have been in the ground by August. It's fully funded, and yet he's keeping that from our children. So it's really important that we work together to get these projects past go so that we can have places for our students. I've also been involved in every single park in my district as a city councilor to make sure that we've done improvements, and I'm proud of that.
Thank you. Mr.
Can I get
Uballez?
a rebuttal on that?
Yeah, if you'd like a 30-second rebuttal, that's fine.
Thank you. I just want to be really clear. That project is a project I started before Louie was even a counselor with Ken Sanchez. And it's absolutely alive and well. It is several million short. That's why we're asking the legislature to do it. And in fact, the contractual agreements are already agreed to. So we're just waiting for the funding. So, just a little fact check there.
Can I have a rebuttal on that?
No, we're not going to do that. We're going to move on.
Okay, so
Mr.
you let
Uballez?
him and you didn't let me?
A 30-second rebuttal to an answer is fine when you bring up a name.
I have been working with
Mr. Uballez, no, we're going to keep moving on. It's Mr. Uballez's turn.
Not fair.
As someone who's been in the terrible position of actually having to prosecute a juvenile, and as someone who's actually looked at the numbers of the success rates of those prosecutions, I can tell you that this is not our solution. Increasing penalties, coming down harder on kids, won't fix our problems. We look at the federal sentencing guidelines and you see folks under 21 sentenced with a gun crime recidivated at a rate around 92%, which means literally any program with a success rate over 8% is someone we should engage with. We actually have solutions. The number one thing to look at as a crimes against children prosecutor is families in crisis. This is what produces kids in crisis. It's because we don't have an affordable city with good paying jobs, health care, and child care. Right? Every crimes against children case that I saw that was physical abuse was one of a family in crisis, and us supporting our families with basic affordability, rental assistance, and care for their kids is crucial to protecting our next generation of kids. We also need safe and free things to do as a city. One of the most popular things on my platform is extending our pool hours after 5 in the summer, because there's 4 more hours of light and that's 4 more hours of things for kids to do that are safe. We need to invest in prevention. That's why I helped stand up the violence intervention program in the city, and why I believe very strongly in its work in the schools. But it actually needs to focus not on schools, on kids in schools, but the kids who are troubled, and link them with the services that they need, not in a tough on crime, scared straight way, but with a supportive way of offering them and their families the support that they need to succeed.
Mr. Varela?
Root causes of juvenile crime. You heard my position on my curfew. That's a beginning, all right? We know that we're getting fentanyl in the sewers in our high school, okay? This is a massive problem that we have to address with the juveniles. But the biggest problem is cell phones, Hollywood, video games. Can we stop that? Probably not, but that's where it starts, I'm telling you. We have a bad economy in this city. That doesn't help juveniles. We have one of the lowest per capita incomes in the whole United States right here. Mom and dad both have to go to work. Juveniles are home by themselves trying to find something to do. We have a terrible education system in the state of New Mexico, and you are seeing the results of it right now with our juveniles. We have to fix that. How does the mayor fix that? With a big, loud voice in Santa Fe. What am I going to do to help kids, all right? I have some plans too, swimming pool, that's good. I want to do a roller derby track at the State Fairgrounds, taking the Coliseum. It's a great sport. It'll get some kids. I've already talked to the racetrack up on the far west side. They have racing up there, and they will allow these street racers that you see every day to race for free. So we can get them off the streets and over there at the racetrack. And there's no end to the things we need to do for our children. Okay, but it all starts at home. We have to increase our wages to our families, increase our economy, and God help us with our education system.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Our juvenile code was designed for kids that packed lunches, not guns.
That's right.
And the victims being one of those people that had to knock on the door in the middle of the night to let them know, a family know, that their loved one was dead. That family doesn't care the age of the hand that squeezed the trigger. They all yearn for justice. They yearn for accountability. And they don't get it in New Mexico with our juveniles. Our DA, Sam Bregman, led the charge, and the governor introduced sweeping legislation that would have addressed this epidemic of younger, more violent, vicious teens. Some of them not even teens. And yet those calls went unanswered. And here we are today. And so I will be that voice. I can explain to them firsthand what it's like to knock on that door. And so we must continue to try to get the legislature to change our juvenile code. One of the things I also like, and I was involved in for a very long time, more about the prevention, on the prevention side of it, is the Police Athletic League. It was such a great program, and it worked so very, very well. Danny Romero and Johnny Tapia and a lot of kids were involved in that program years ago. And it really was a very, very helpful program. And I'd like to see it come back again and help.
Thank you. For this round of questions, the candidates will get the opportunity to ask each other a question. Before the debate started, they all randomly chose a name of one of their opponents, and they can ask that person a question during this round. Mayor Keller, we'll start with you.
Okay, I drew Louie Sanchez, so my question for you is that, let's see, can you specifically name 3 pieces of legislation that you have been the lead sponsor for that has passed, and if any of them have ever helped at all with APD?
One of the things that Mayor Keller knows is that one of the things that everyone in here knows is that the city, right now, the budget, $150 million in the budget right now. And the question would, though, I can answer your question with the question, Mayor Keller. Over the 8 years, you've had record budgets. You've had federal relief money that no other mayor has ever had. You had rising crime, homelessness doubling, and where's the money?
I'll definitely take a rebuttal since he asked me a question, if that's okay. I mean, I don't know why he did that, but.
Yeah, I suppose. And just so we know, we're allowing rebuttals on some circumstances, but not rebuttals of rebuttals.
Yeah.
So that's his second one, and you didn't give me a chance to.
But I asked you a question, and your answer was to ask me a question.
Okay.
If you just would have answered the question, I wouldn't rebuttal. So, yes. We increased the budget because we pay our officers more now than we did before, and our firefighters and our officers. We created the Community Safety Department, and we've provided over 1,000 people with housing vouchers. So that's why we increased the budget, and it was the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Sanchez, your question?
Oh, my question is for Eddie Varela. Mr. Varela, what is the single biggest failure of this administration, and how would you fix it?
The single biggest failure is the paramedic reduction from 2 to 1. This is drastic. I cannot emphasize how bad a situation. So the firefighters union fought against it. The council sided with the firefighters, and Mayor Keller sued the firefighters union, and he sued the council. We must stop this. Thank you, Louie. This is the most important question to me, whether I win or not. We've got to retain 2 paramedics on our trucks because the life you save by fighting for this might be your own.
Thank you.
So,
Mr. Uballez?
I mean, people are using the questions to ask me questions like, can I get a rebuttal? I mean, I'm not doing this to myself. They're doing it to me. But
how about a quick 15-second rebuttal?
So all we did, we piloted 1 paramedic on a truck for faster response in 2 stations. We expanded it to 4 more. We're just testing it out. And we did take it to the governing body, and we won. So we're just going to try and continue to improve response time.
Thanks. Mr. Uballez, because we're not going to do rebuttals of rebuttals.
Because that's not true. Okay.
We'll get an opportunity later. Let's keep moving on. Mr. Uballez?
Yeah, Tim, you won't have to rebut this because the question's for you.
All right, that's great.
Your administration's faced numerous lawsuits from employees for retaliation, dozens of folks suing for exposure to asbestos during the construction of your Gateway Center, CWA suing for back wages for the work that they're doing in the important work that they are doing in ACS. What advice would you give to the next mayor to rebuild the public trust broken by your administration?
So I think this is a good example of taking, things that happen in a city of 7,000 people and trying to make them into something they're not. So when you have to manage 7,000 people, you're going to have HR issues. And firstly, with respect to the asbestos folks, I was one of them. I'm both the defendant and the person named because I've been in there just as much as anyone else. So it happens. Asbestos happens in buildings, and 12 people, they may have been there a few extra days, including me. So we should resolve that, and that's how we have courts. Also, with respect to CWA, there was a new department in ACS, and so we do owe them some money. I think we've actually settled that. And also, CWA has actually endorsed me for mayor, so I'm sure there's no issue there with respect to trust. And I think this is a good example where when you consider that is the only question you're going to ask me when you have your one question, that is a huge stamp of trust and approval, that those are the only issues that you can raise with trust in our administration.
Thank you. Mr. Varela.
My question is for Alex next to me, who I think the world of. He's a great guy, has a great family. But Alex has a very philosophical idea about how crime should be solved and how homeless can be solved. And I listen, and I like his thing. But here's the one that gets me. Alex, do you really believe that there is another way besides incarceration for a criminal?
Yes, and it's not philosophical, it's practical. I'm actually the candidate with the most relevant and most recent experience here in criminal justice, having served the past 15 years here in that world. Over the past 15 years, the world has changed, by the way. 15 years ago, meth was cooked in trailers, fentanyl was a patch, Glock switches didn't exist, we didn't use Telegram to sell guns, we didn't have Snapchat to sell drugs. And so having the relevant perspective on how to fight crime is critical, but also the relevant perspective on how to prevent it, right? And so what we actually need to think about is not how we put more people in jail, but how we prevent more people from falling into the criminal justice system. Because we know if they're falling there because of poverty or addiction or mental health, these are not things that a criminal justice sentence can solve. They will not deter these things. We need to be thinking proactively about how we protect our community, support our families, build an affordable city for everyone so that we don't fall into the criminal justice system and so we can grow up with a prosperous and safe city. Thank you for the question, Eddie.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Oh, yeah, that's me. Bring it, buddy. Bring it. Let's do this. Let's make this interesting because I'm falling asleep over here.
Dance down there?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. And why am I on the left and you on the right? That's just all wrong.
I don't know. Is it? Is it?
Oh, gosh. So, first of all, I want to say I thank Mayling for her service. She's a Navy veteran. She is also somebody who's established herself as an expert in economic development. So my question for you, Mayling, is given your experience in economic development, what would you do differently now than what's currently being done?
Well, thank you for the question, Darren. I think it's really simple. We just, like I said earlier, we need to be customer focused and work at the speed of business in the city. We need to be responsive to our business community. We need to lower our fees. We need to lower taxes. I know, and you're hearing that from me and not Darren. So these are just the first steps we can do as a city to ease the pain of doing business because it's so expensive. As you had said, Darren, the cost of insurance has gone up for small businesses exponentially. So it's not hard. We just have to go back to basics, and we have to be welcoming to businesses coming to Albuquerque. We have to let them know that this is the place to do business, and this is the place to grow your business. And again, it's really not that difficult, but you can easily turn a business away when they get a bill from their insurance company that went from $7,000 a year to now $37,000 a year. And we'll continue to see businesses shutter until crime is decreased and homelessness is under control. So, let's just get back to basics, Darren.
I need a rebuttal.
Thank you. And well, I think Mayling is going to
Yes,
ask
I
you
have
a question right
question.
now.
Oh, nice. Besides committing to sing on Dance, Dance, Dance again, Darren.
Yes.
So, Darren, you stepped down as CEO of Pure Life, correct?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So my question to you is, you're chief of public safety and had years in law enforcement leadership, yet crime in Albuquerque has gotten worse since you were in office. Since you were with the Berry administration. Why should voters believe you can fix a problem that created when you were in office?
Sure. I like to say, the mayor likes to talk about, sorry, Mayor, I got to bring you up because it's a very important part of the question. The mayor likes to talk about that we've had the sharpest declines in 10 years as it relates to crime. And, 10 years ago in 2014, there were 30 murders in our city. And in 2024, there were 106. And I don't see that as a comeback. I see that as a crisis. So yes, Mayling, I would like to go back. I'd like our community to be safer as in that regard. Let me tell you, so I have knocked on that door in the middle of the night, and I've had to tell people that their loved one was killed by violence. My grandfather was murdered. I know it from my own family. I will tell you this, I am a little bit harder than a lot of people when it comes to dealing with criminals, because the closer you are to a crime scene, the harder you get. You want people to be held accountable. You want people to face consequences. We know here in New Mexico, that doesn't happen. We have a system, I don't even know what to call it anymore, but it's not holding people accountable. And by the time they are, it's way too late and they've killed somebody. And so, yeah, I yearn for that time 10 years ago where we only had 30 murders.
Thank you. All right, our next question comes from Dan Boyd, and Louie Sanchez will be the first to answer.
Thank you, and that was some fun exchanges listening to you all there on your questions. We touched on this issue earlier, but with the state recently issuing a contract for an outside vendor to come up with a new master plan, do you think the state fair should continue to be held in Albuquerque, or do you think there are better uses for the current fairgrounds?
I actually love the state fair being where it's at, and it should be held in Albuquerque and left alone.
Okay. Mr. Uballez?
I love where the state fair is at. I have a lot of great memories there. I take my 3 kids there every single year to see the pull flyers and go on the rides. I think it's such a core part of so many of our experiences here in Albuquerque. But I don't know that the decision's in our hands or even in the mayor's hands. And so should it move somewhere else, and I hope it doesn't, then we should also look at opportunities there for that area. I worry, of course, that we're moving a very, very nice thing away from an area that we have not supported for years, simply because we're refusing to solve the problems in the surrounding area. I think that's the wrong call. But if we do have the opportunity to renovate and refigure what it looks like there, then we should take that opportunity to build a city center that works for the International District and uplifts it. So we have walkable and livable places that are affordable for people to live, where we support small businesses, we finally get a grocery store and a pharmacy there, so people have the basic things that they need to survive. I think we have an opportunity, should it leave, to be very intentional about the community that we are creating there and creating a large investment in a place of the city that we've ignored for far too long.
Thank you. Mr. Varela.
Here we go again. Martin Chavez, who happened to be an old friend of mine, who was the mayor, does a press release and said, we're going to sell the state fair. Whoa. Everybody says, what do you mean going to sell? No, I do not want to sell the state fair. It is a historical landmark for our city. Then they come back and say, we're going to spend $750,000 a year for a feasibility study. No, let's bring it to the people. Let's see what the people want to do and not the special interest thing. The state fair is a historical landmark. We need to leave it alone. We all grew up there. And here's the thing that really irritates me. What's the next plan? Where are we going to put the state fair? I don't know. How much is it going to cost? I don't know. This is not good government. Leave the state fair alone. If you want to propose an alternative site in Los Lunas or whatever, then do it. And let us decide, let us vote to see if we want to move our state fair. I do not.
Thank you. Mr. White.
The State Fair is just, it's a New Mexico gem. And why would we want to move it? If we did follow through with this plan that's being proposed, it will be the largest public works project in the history of our state. It'll be a project that will alter the footprint and face of our city more than any has ever in our past. And yet, it's just being pushed through. It's being pushed on us because there's this artificial timeline. The governor only has a year, a little bit more than a year, and so we got to get it through. Whoa, we just need to slow down. We need more community involvement. You know, when they released this plan a year ago, Marty Chavez, who was heading this up, he did an interview, a sit-down interview. And the mayor said, you know, we got to do this because the area outside of the State Fair is a cesspool of crime, drugs, and homelessness.
That was Marty, just to be clear.
I did.
You said the mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I know you didn't.
No. Did you know that he knew that right away too?
I did.
No, it was Marty Chavez that said it. And the problem I have with that is let's clean it up first. And let's have more community involvement before we make this rash decision. I'm for saving the fair.
Thank you. Ms. Armijo.
I don't agree with it. I'm for saving the fair as well. I don't think moving it, it's been there. It was decided to be there many years ago for a reason, and it needs to continue to stay there. And what burns me about this whole process is they did hire an out-of-state company, and they're paying them thousands of dollars to tell us something we already know, that it needs to stay there. That's what the conclusion is going to come to. And not only that, the neighborhood associations in the area, the neighbors, are up in arms about why are we spending all this money on the State Fair or figuring out what we want to do with it instead of focusing on the problem at hand, which is crime and homelessness. It's almost like we're trying to take the attention from what is really going on in our city.
Thank you. Mayor Keller?
Well, I think we have broad consensus. So I just want to be clear. I've said from day one I want the State Fair to stay. And I was born and raised here and grew up at the fair and love it. So, you know, I think there's more to this that I think is helpful to know. I'm not disagreeing with anyone about anything in a sense of the following. You know, the city has invested heavily in the International District. We've built a new library, the International District Library. We fixed up Phil Chacon Park. We rebuilt the police station. We fixed up Wilson Park. We fixed up Wilson Pool. We've added landscaping. We've added hundreds of lights. We've repaved most of the neighborhoods. And we're planting thousands of trees. We're doing all these things, but there is an opportunity to do more. And that's what this is about. The State Fair Tax Increment Board now has access to about $100 million of funding. I think that funding should be used to go to the community, and also it is an opportunity to do something on the corners of the grounds. So if you think of a rectangle, because that's roughly what it looks like, more looks like the shape of Utah, but anyway, you can take those corners and you can do good things. You can have more community space. You can have mixed-use housing. You can actually build things we need, and we have the funding mechanism to do it for the first time. This is my third time around trying to help the State Fair. And what's happening now is people are saying it's either or, and it's both. You can keep the fair there, and you can develop the corners, and you can lift up the neighborhood.
Thank you. I think we got time for one more before we get into closing remarks. Darlene Melendez will ask the question, and Alex Uballez will be the first to answer.
So even though education policy issues are set by APS and the state, the city policy does still affect whether students can succeed through things like housing, safety, transportation, and economic opportunities. So if elected, how should the city close gaps in housing, safety, transportation, and those economic opportunities to ensure that every child in Albuquerque has the same shot at success?
Thank you, Darlene. I'm, I think, thankfully not running for school board. But I do think there's a lot of things that a city mayor could do to support APS in providing these opportunities to people. That starts, as we've talked about already, at the family level. So a lot of the problems that our teachers face in the classroom and a lot of the things that they bear the brunt of and scrutiny for are problems that begin outside of the classroom and have everything to do with affordability and livability and whether or not their folks feel secure in their housing. And so providing that atmosphere for our kids and supporting our families is the first thing we need to do. Safety, of course, is also important in terms of, we've had a long discussion about how we make our streets safer and hold people accountable while preventing violence and intervening. But I think what we should be doing is having a senior level liaison in the mayor's office to APS, so we can work hand in hand with them to provide those internships and opportunities, apprenticeships, working with trade unions, working with CNM and with UNM. So students see opportunity in this city. Too many of our kids don't see a future in our city because they don't see a pathway through school to something that will provide them a livable wage. We can do this from the city side. And so it's our responsibility to show every kid who is in our school system that they have a future and a skill set and are valued here in our city. And finally, I think transportation is critical, but getting around our city, having that be frequent and reliable for parents and for students, be safe so they can get to school and back from school with some independence and get to enjoy our city and see our city as members of it.
Thank you. Mr. Varela.
Thank you. This issue comes up a lot out on the street in this journey, and I've thought about it long and hard, and yes, transportation is important for school. I'm going to eliminate free bus rides completely unless you're a senior or a student. Okay, because they're not using the transportation system anymore because it's inundated with homeless. What can a mayor do to increase the likelihood of a young person in Albuquerque to become successful? I have 9 grown children, 8 boys and a girl. 7 have left our city because there are not the opportunities that they should have gotten here. So what the mayor has is the most important thing. And you heard me talk about curfews, you heard me talk about homeless or anything, but the mayor has one thing, and that's a voice in Santa Fe. And I don't hear it. Okay, if you're the mayor, you go to Santa Fe and you represent half of New Mexico. Half the population lives in Albuquerque, the other half in the state. You go to Santa Fe and you demand things, all right? You demand a juvenile health code. You don't just let these elected politicians tell you what you're going to get. You demand better schools, and you demand mass transit, which is one of my issues. And that's what the mayor has, a voice, a loud voice, and you better use it if you're going to be a successful mayor.
Thank you. Mr. White.
Yes. Reading proficiency in New Mexico, it's disastrous. Excuse me. The kids struggle. They struggle to keep up, they get frustrated, they fall behind, and then they drop out. And that is a vicious cycle that we see time in and time again. And so, as I said before, there are some things we are limited in what we can do with APS, but I think that role and that mission is critical because, let's face it, as long as this cycle continues, the city will have to deal with it. It's one of those, you deal with me now or you can deal with me later issues. And so that's why I think we need to increase the after-school tutoring. I want to see us get more involved in that vocational training. I've talked to a lot of contractors while I've been on the campaign trail, and many of them say we need younger people who are being taught the trades, so that if they're not going to higher education, they can get involved in something that they can have forever and make them productive members of society. But I don't have to tell anybody out here. APS is not only failing our kids, they're failing our state, and we have to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Armijo.
So I want to create the Mayor's Office of Youth and Education to coordinate with APS and collaborate on solutions in and around these areas and students' needs. We need to look at housing. Housing is a tough one, especially with a lot of kids, students being homeless. And, that's just a wraparound issue that we have to address on many levels. In transportation, though APS does have transportation, we need to look at expanding ways to get children that are in areas that don't have currently transportation. So we need to collaborate with APS. We may not run the school, but we can bridge the success between we can bridge the students to success. And that is just working with the school board and integrating ourselves with APS so that we can help be part of the solution.
Thank you. Mayor Keller?
Well, I think you hear some good, well-intentioned ideas, and I think the starting place is to at least know or build on what the city's already doing. And I just want to highlight, the city does have what Alex asked for, a senior liaison. It's a woman named Kat Sandoval, and I think he even knows her. I just want to respect her work for a second, because she is doing the collaboration, and she is the liaison that Mayling spoke of. Now, of course, what she's working on is also what Darren mentioned, which is adding in skills into our after-school programs. And we have a great example of this. Remco Bolt is actually a rehab of an old building next to a homeless platform, but it's also doing apprenticeship training for high schoolers so that they can actually have a job after. Those are the kinds of projects we need more of. That's a specific example of what we want to try and expand. Now, the question also touched on housing, and I think that's really important, because the lack of housing is a root cause, and we have to acknowledge that first and foremost. That's why my administration has done more zoning reform to promote housing than we have in the last 40 years, allowing casitas, allowing us to build up a little higher, allowing us to have one less parking spot. These things are literally creating homes for families who go to APS. And so that's why I'm converting all these rundown, crime-ridden hotels and office buildings into more housing, because that is a root cause for both poverty and our challenges in our education system for our kids. Lastly, we got to keep our buses safe. That's why we've added transit security officers, and we have a CSAY app so that people can start self-reporting when there are problems on the buses.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Sanchez.
One of the biggest things that I see out there when I go out to speak to the schools is their actual safety when they're bringing the kids to school. We don't see very many kids walking to school these days, and they don't walk to school because they don't feel that their neighborhood is safe. And again, we go right back into leadership, and we go back into the crime problem. Right now, when a child walks from school, they're walking through, in some areas, needle pits, and walking through areas that they shouldn't be walking through. So what you have then you have the transportation issue. Now you have the parents and family members who have to bring the child to school. And in that area, we can help by making sure that there is safety to and from school and safety as they're getting dropped off. It's really important that we work together to provide the safety that our students need so that they can get a proper education. I think it's really important that we involve small businesses and internship programs, large business as well, so that these children, while they're involved, they can go over and have an amazing opportunity to learn a trade or learn a skill set that is involved in that small business. When I was younger, I was involved in the DECA program, and during that DECA year, I was able to actually add credits to my schooling to make sure. And what that did is that kept us involved and kept us motivated and kept us moving forward. And those small business internships will keep kids out of trouble and keep them in school.
Thank you, Counselor. That concludes the question and answer portion of the debate. We'll now give all the candidates 1 minute to make their closing statement. And Mr. Varela, we will start with you.
Thank you. I'm Eddie Varela. I'm running for mayor. Born and raised in this town, 30 years, proven leadership in the fire service. I have raised my family here. It was a beautiful place. I want it to be that again. You heard me talk about my crime plan, and you heard me talk about, in my preface, look at my plan carefully, because it's going to work. And I know it's going to work because I've talked to hundreds of cops. Look at my homeless plan. You may not agree with it, but it's time we reduce the numbers substantially because they have adversely affected our city and our schools and everything else. It goes right back to then. All right? I have 3 priorities in my campaign, and I'm going to read them to you. Taxpayers. Taxpayers come in last. You hear people talk about homeless. What about the taxpayers? Seniors. I go to senior centers and they're afraid to ride the buses. And the last is our young people. Those are my 3 priorities, and I'm going to stick by it. Vote for Eddie Varela. Help is on the way, I promise you.
Thank you. Mr. White.
Before you go vote, ask yourself this question. What is Tim Keller going to do in 12 years that he hasn't done in 8? If I'm elected, I will only serve 4 years. I'm not trying to pad my political career or punch my ticket to higher office. Mayor Keller is running to save his political career. I'm running to save our city. Mayor, I noticed today you started referring to me as Day One Darren. And that is a moniker I proudly accept. Because on day one, I am going to roll up my sleeves, get to work, and clean up the mess. A mess you created, Mayor, in 2,882 days. It is time for a change. My name is Darren White, and I respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you. Ms. Armijo.
So you've heard today all of the ideas from the different candidates, but then you also heard the mayor respond, we're already doing that. Well, you've been doing it for 8 years and yet no results, because the difference in leadership is that you need to tie measured outcomes and specified goals to ideas so that you can then see the result. That is the different type of leadership that I bring to this table. And I also want to note that I understand what it is to be hungry. I'm the only one sitting up here that has worked in the private industry longer than they've worked in government. So I know what it is to not have a paycheck every 2 weeks, to have to eat what you kill, to be hungry, to know that if you do not get results, you get fired. That's what happens. That is what I bring to the table, is results, because I know in 4 years you'll fire me. And I'm okay with that because I'm hungry to make this city better.
Thank you. Mayor Keller.
Well, for day one, Darren, the only thing you're going to do on day one is break a promise. You're just saying things that are either illegal or ineffective or not doable, especially on day one.
Let's find
So
out.
I know, you say you're running to save the city. I don't have some kind of savior complex. I'm just doing the tough work of problem solving to help our city for generations. And you're trying to resurrect your career. I know mine is already done. No mayor has ever gone on to something else besides being mayor, because this is a work that you do because you love your hometown and you know it's the right thing to do. So for me, this is not about the last 8 years and people saying what happened then. These are tough times. The question on the ballot is, who is the best equipped for the next 4? And I think that has become clear today. It's easy to just talk about the problem or say things that there's no way you can deliver on. What's hard is to actually do the real work, to say how you're going to fix it, to describe specific answers to your questions. That's what I have done today. So I see what you see. I see the challenges, but I also see the things that we're doing right and that are making a difference. That's why we have to keep going.
Thank you. Councilor Sanchez.
I know that everyone in here knows the definition of insanity, so I don't need to go through it. I'm here to end the insanity. We have seen for over 8 years, the crime has grown, the homelessness has grown. We've heard advertisements for people to come on over that are homeless to come join and jump in the beds that are provided to make sure that more and more homeless are coming to Albuquerque. That's not what we're all about. What we're about and what I'm about is actually bridging the gaps, making sure that the citizens of Albuquerque, all of us, can speak to each other, make sure that we are working together to solve the problems that we have. The biggest issue that I've faced as a city councilor is being dealt with things that deal with leadership, accountability, and transparency constantly. Over and over, and I know each and every one of you out there has seen that. These issues with transparency need to come forward so that Albuquerque can trust our city government again. And that's what I will bring is your trust.
Mr. Uballez.
Well, it's clear that Tim knows the answers, but it's also clear that he has failed to implement them. And this is what happens when you make good ideas look bad. You make the bad ideas of the challengers look necessary. We don't have to settle for going backwards with Louie's misdemeanor sweeps or day one Darren's sweeps of the streets. We can pick a leader who will lead us forward and build an affordable and accessible city where you call 911, you get the answer that you need and the problem solving that you need quickly, where you have housing that's affordable and accessible. You have transportation that connects the entire city and is reliable, where we have a future and jobs and opportunities for kids, and most importantly, a city where everyone takes care of their neighbors. This is an approach based on delivering results. And I ask you to look at every one of our resumes and the things that we have achieved and vote for the person who will deliver the results that you can feel. As your United States Attorney, we have moved mountains. I know together we can build a city that works for all of us.
Right. Thank you. That concludes our roundtable discussion today. Thank you to Journal partners KKOB and KOAT, the League of Women Voters, and thank you all for the candidates for taking time out of your day to be here. Good luck on the rest of your campaigns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.